work that one. Hello, everyone. Oh, I'm sorry, we're live. Ha ha ha! I didn't mean to say that. Everyone, it's Tuesday, February 28th, 2017.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology, and look for my new college hockey book with Adam Woden. I don't know when, but soon, next year.
As soon as it comes out, we will let you know. And I'm Eklund. You're watching the HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes to you every Monday through Friday at this time, and tomorrow a lot longer, but in the same time as well. It's just we will be going on the air sooner. And I apologize for my appearance, but I'm in trade deadline mode, which means I'm not sleeping. And, that's how it plays out here. And we also apologize for the temporary issues with HockeyBuzz.com. We're not the only one. Other websites you're visiting frequently probably are having the same issues right now. It seems to be an Amazon server issue, which is fantastic this time of year for it to happen for us. Because, in the scheme of things, we need our web server to be good. But they usually are fantastic. So I'm sure this will be fixed shortly. But in the meantime, you've got us right here going rogue on YouTube, saying whatever the hell we want to say. And the trade deadline is more than upon us. It is already happening. Happening all around us. And we have another trade to announce here. And that is that, and this was reported earlier today on Hockey Buzz by me. I don't know if I was first or not because I'm really not paying attention to that. That's another story for another day. But all I know is that Victor Stahlberg, who it wouldn't be a trade deadline without, has been traded to the Ottawa Senators. And Victor Stahlberg is definitely one of my he's got to be in my top 10 all-time most talked about trade deadline people. He's right there. I don't know what that says about Victor Stahlberg.
That he's insignificant enough to be traded multiple times at the deadline. And
yet good enough for people to take a chance on him. So he's right in the middle there in some way, shape, or form. So that is true.
So is this the Stahlberg trade you're talking about?
Yes.
Who was he traded for what?
A third-round pick in 2017.
To the Ottawa Senators.
Ottawa, who's collecting former Leafs.
Yeah. How many teams is this for Stahlberg now? Does anyone care to know?
Toronto, Chicago, Nashville, the
I'm going 6 or 7.
Yeah.
I think this is his 5th, but let me check if that system isn't down.
But yeah, look, he's a guy that could play, fourth line minutes. He's a big body. He could grind it out a little bit. I mean, that's what you're getting out of him. I mean, at this point, Ottawa's looking for bodies because they think they could take the division. I get it. I do.
Yeah.
Okay, Maple Leafs, Blackhawks, Nashville, Rangers, Carolina. 5 teams. I got them all.
Okay. 6 is Ottawa. So Ottawa's a 6.
So it is a 6 team. Thank you.
All right. So where to start? Since we last,
I know where to start. I have a good idea, but I'll let you start.
Why don't you tell us where to start?
I think we should start with the Brian Boyle trade. I think hell froze over yesterday. I think the Genie was right.
Again.
I think the Genie was right. I think the fact that the Leafs bought makes Cousin Eddie very happy. Hey, Eddie, hey. And our own Mike, who
today, which if this is a standalone deal and the Leafs don't do anything more before 3 p.m. tomorrow, then I think it's a sign of the complete abandonment of the. I think it's a bad move because you're talking about, look at the 2 moves that the Leafs have made that sort of are not consistent with the rebuild. Going completely bonkers about the backup goaltender who's going to play at most 18 games. First Enroth, then the whole thing with Kari Ramo, which didn't turn out, and then finally McElhinney. And McElhinney's a fine backup, but so is Enroth. But it was I think the want of Mike Babcock to get somebody other than Enroth in there, and now you trade a second-round pick in what is purported to be not a great draft, a second-round pick for a 32-year-old face-off specialist who is more than that, but basically that's what they got him.
A lot of room on the ice. He does cause some matchup problems. He does.
He's not a bad player, and it's a good ad. But the problem I have with it is not trading Byron Froese, but trading a second-round pick when now the thing is, if what I've been talking about for months and what Bob McKenzie just reported about a couple hours ago, that there is more to happen and the Leafs may use their cap room to take on dead money and get assets. If that's what they're going to do, then they can recoup that draft pick and maybe even get more picks before tomorrow at 3 p.m. And then they're still on the rebuild track because they're trying to improve in the short term and they're still rebuilding.
All
but
right,
if they don't do that,
just texted something, guys. I know this is significant, but we got to not just Leaf focus ourselves. Right. Sure. But I know, and there's so much happening. But Ryan Murphy, the somewhat interesting defenseman in Carolina,
yes,
is apparently being talked about by several teams. I don't want to say he's being.
Look, he's.
I don't want to say he's being shot, but he's being talked about by many teams.
Yeah, he's fast and he can move the puck. They've been using him this year a lot. His offense has never really come around, but in the puck moving era, he can do that. So, I could see somebody taking a chance on him.
This is an expansion consideration because they have 3 defensemen that they can protect or they have to protect, and they probably can't protect Murphy. He's a former first-round pick, and like Russ just said, he's got the skill set that seems to be in vogue right now. Even though you're not a big defenseman, if you're fast, if you have some offensive creativity, you're going to be interested. You're going to draw interest, and I'm sure that Carolina right now would rather trade him for a draft pick than to lose him for nothing in expansion. You're going to have a lot of these type of deals before 3 p.m. tomorrow.
I do want to answer back to your long, ponderous Leafs argument and just say this. The rebuild is over. The coach asked for a backup goalie. He got it. The coach asked for a center. He got it.
Right.
Rebuilding teams don't do that. Now, does that mean they're never going to trade for picks or assets? No. But they realized we can make the playoffs. We can make money, just as I stated. Right. And that's what a team is always going to try and do when they're in line to do it like they are.
The problem with that, Russ, the psychological issue with that is that if the rebuild is over, then Leaf fans set themselves up again for disaster.
No, I know.
If the rebuild is over, then this team, then the management of the Maple Leafs misrepresented what they were going to do.
Because they didn't. You have money to spend in the offseason. You've got young assets.
I mean, okay, you have a bunch of rookies who have overachieved. You don't trade your assets for short-term plugs, which is what Boyle is. Boyle is a fourth-line center, a face-off specialist.
How do you know they're not going to sign Boyle next year?
Well, possibly, but you can use your assets like they did to acquire Frederik Andersen. That's fine. That's a long-term piece, a 5-year contract, your starting goaltender.
You don't
defenseman. I guarantee you is a long-term at Monopoly. You must have lost every time at Monopoly.
Not every piece is a long-term piece is the issue there. And not every, that there have to be other pieces that are short-term pieces. And that's what Boyle is. Boyle, but that doesn't mean Boyle's just a trade rental.
Well, okay. This is
a 2-year player, a 3-year player.
If they re-sign him, fine. But this is my point of view. What they do this year is inconsequential. They make the playoffs, it's great. If they don't, okay. But I'm sure Leaf fans want them to make the playoffs. What I'm saying is the important thing is the long-term goal within the next 3 to 5 years of winning a Stanley Cup. And I don't think making I'm sure I will get an argument from other people, including Mike Babcock, who probably thinks that there is a value of getting into the playoffs and giving Matthews, Marner, and Neil.
Everybody in the world thinks there's a value to that.
Get a chance to win the Stanley Cup.
No,
what is that?
So wait, let me ask you this, Mike.
Yes.
If they made it to the Eastern Conference Finals, just because there was an easy path, that would be bad, right?
No, once they make
how did you even pause on that? I mean, come on.
The Islanders. Let's talk about the Islanders for a second, okay?
Give me a second to answer the freaking question. Jeez.
Go ahead.
No, I'm done. It's like yes.
I'm sorry.
What I'm saying is what the results of this year really are inconsequential. But if you
they're not. They're consequential if they make the playoffs. How's that inconsequential?
No, I'm talking about the long-term development of the franchise. That's all I'm saying.
Let's development.
We'll have 5 hours to talk about this tomorrow. Okay, let's talk about the Islanders because there's something.
Winning playoff games is never bad for the development of a franchise.
What losing in the playoffs and getting your butt kicked is.
No, it's not. You learn from that.
I'm sorry.
It's never bad to go to the playoffs, ever. I mean, there's never – I mean, it's never. You've already bottomed out. It's not like you can argue that they've got to bottom out. They've already bottomed out. So it's like once you've bottomed out, there's no bad part of going to.
Last thing here. Let me give you the worst case scenario. They make a trade for Brian Boyle. Maybe they even make another trade for a depth defenseman, and they miss the playoffs. And they give the Tampa Bay Lightning a high second-round pick for a failed run in the last 5 weeks. That's a real good scenario there.
Yes, it is, because what that does, okay, it tells Marner and Matthews.
They know it already.
No, they don't. They don't. They need to know that this team is willing to do whatever it takes to give them the best opportunity, and puts pressure on Marner and Matthews to do well in the rest of the season, to try to make the playoffs, and all that is very important.
They know it already. This organization.
It's not a matter of knowing it.
To add players.
Actions speak louder.
It's actions, and these are hockey players. These are kids. They need to know. They need to see this stuff. They need to see it. They do, because this is a team that hasn't, sure, they've done a lot. They've hired Babcock, they've hired Shanahan, they've hired Lamoriello, and all that's great. But until they show that they're able to win, I
think the viewpoint of most Leaf fans out there is, if you make the playoffs, great. If you don't make the playoffs, they weren't expected to.
I don't doubt that that's the viewpoint of most Leaf fans. Partially because they're afraid to win. I mean, they're not afraid to win.
A lot of them are afraid to win. They are.
Then you can lose. Then you emotionally set yourself up for the possibility that you could actually lose, and that sucks. What's happening now is you can set yourself up and say, "Oh, it doesn't matter if we win or lose," and then you can just go on with your life. And I know the Maple Leafs have given people ulcers in their lives.
I don't think that they're afraid to lose. That they want their team to be good enough to win, and they're not good enough to win.
Playoffs is not going to make them less good.
Okay, we'll see.
No matter what you say, I mean, it's not like they're trading. They're not trading a first-round draft pick away here.
I have a different viewpoint.
Okay, I know you're asset managing, and I think that
there
comes a point at which asset management fails, because
that
point is when you're starting to this is like you've bought your house. You're like my dad. Okay, my dad, when we were young, we went to Vegas, right? And in Vegas, you can get really great hotels for almost nothing. You can stay in when I was a kid, you could stay in the Hilton, and the beautiful, because they're casinos and they want to bring you in, right? But my dad, so there was we were driving into Vegas in the old days of mobile travel guides and road atlases before the internet. I'm holding my mobile travel guide atlas and saying, Dad, you know what? The mobile travel guide says we can stay for $49 at the Hilton or the Regency or the Grand Regency or whatever. And Dad's like, we can stay for $29 at Joe's Inn right there. And Joe's Inn has has the vibrating beds that you put a quarter in, has the air conditioner that doesn't work in the 150-degree Vegas weather, and we're going to stay there for $29 to asset manage the other $18 that could have stayed at the Hilton Regency. That's what's happening here. It's like there's a point at which asset management is stupid.
Mike, you never asked the previous question.
You have to realize that that's extra. As long as you are, it's not like my dad said we're not going to stay anywhere. But we were anyway. That's my analogy.
Asset management is only stupid when you're the Edmonton Oilers and you draft the same players over and over.
Mike, were you good at Monopoly? Were you afraid to build hotels when you owned everything?
No. I went right for Park Place and Boardwalk, and I kicked ass.
Well, the Leafs are going right for Park Place and Boardwalk, and you're balking at it.
Yeah, but you have to build up your houses in Monopoly, Russ. You can't put the hotels on them right there, right at the very beginning. You have to build up your houses. You have to pay money. You have to manage things correctly. And they're, that. And if they're not. They haven't yet, because
that's it. They haven't gone through the motions enough to make Mike happy that they've done that, because things have gotten accelerated. Hold on. So when things got accelerated, it took them off the path that Mike had for them, which was the safe path.
No, it's
not on the safe path anymore.
Look at the team that is in front of you right now, and they do not have a defense that's even close to being.
Yeah, but how good are they? How good is anybody else in the Atlantic?
They're not the only team that doesn't have a defense.
Right.
I mean, just because they don't have, but they do have Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner, and other teams don't have that. So there's
the Rangers just traded for Toronto
that are going to make the playoffs. There's teams out there that have defenses just as bad that are going to make, and there's defenses that are just as bad. So they are now in the world of real teams doing real things.
Yeah, the Rangers. Hold on, the Rangers traded for Brendan Smith, right? This is a team that is hoping to get out of the first round, maybe the second round. They'll tell you they're going to win the Stanley
for a guy that the Red Wings weren't sure they were going to give $3 million a year to.
Correct, and I'm not sure he'll be in the league in 2 years or 3 years.
Right.
Last thing on this, and there is a benefit to the Leafs making the playoffs, but not at the cost of spending assets. That's all I'm saying. If they didn't trade for Brian Boyle and they made the playoffs and they didn't give up a second-round pick, everything would be great. If they go out and before the deadline and get a couple more draft picks or a couple more prospects and add to their asset pool, great. If they don't, and this is a standalone deal, I think it's wrong. I think it's stupid.
Heck, we need someone. If Eric's watching, we need someone to build Mike the house of assets, and I think that's what we need to have on Mike's page. Show the house of assets, and just as it keeps getting fuller, to see at what point will he be happy? How many assets have you compiled to the point where you're happy? That's all.
All right, those of you out there who are asking about the website, I mean, half the internet is having problems right now. It's not just us. It's issue with the Amazon servers, which a lot of people like us use because they're usually incredibly reliable. That's what's happening right now, and it should be. I'm sure it'll be fixed soon. I mean, this is a company that doesn't have ever issues, and the reason that they are so popular is they are very, very, very popular with.
Sportsology.com is working, however, so you can go there in the interim.
There you go. All right.
Just saying.
We may have to take over your site tomorrow, Russ. And
that's fine. If we need to, we can do that.
Send people to Sportsology all day for rumors.
I'll borrow your traffic, no problem.
All right. So getting away from Toronto.
Yes, please.
For sure. Let's talk about the Islanders, who are. I'm hearing a lot of Islanders stuff now. They made an interesting move, actually sending a player down.
Yeah, Josh was saying they sent him. They basically recalled him on an emergency basis. Right. Even got there, and they got rid of the recall so that there's still an emergency contingency that could take place. And now he's currently I don't know. Is he en route back to Bridgeport? Is he
probably on the Merritt Parkway?
Is he at Starbucks? Right. I mean, we don't know. He's in limbo right now. I guess he's headed halfway back to Bridgeport. That's my guess.
The Bret Hart rest stop somewhere along Route 95.
Yeah, see, only in the NHL can you do this. Call someone up for emergency. If you break the emergency box in a hotel, the alarm sounds. You can't recall that. I
talked to one guy one time. He said, "This is the one time being in the NHL reminds me of." This is an NHL player said, "This is one time being in the NHL reminds me of when I was a snowplow worker part time. You would get called up in the morning or drive down to the snow. Oh, we got too many guys. Go back. You're all right. We're good."
And that's what's happened with the Islanders. You have to believe something is going on there.
Yeah.
Because I know people want the negative thing. On Twitter, they're like, "Whoa, did you miss practice again or something?" No. This has something to do with roster spots.
It has to do with roster picks.
Yes.
Well, why don't we talk about some of the deals that were made last night?
All right, let's go with Shattenkirk to start with, because that obviously is the big trade, and one of the big trades of the deadline.
But by the way, I'd love to find out how they come up with deals.
It's unbelievable.
How did they come up with 39% of the cap retention and not 40 or 50? You know what I'm saying? I mean, there are so many conditions in this deal. I think we wouldn't have enough time if we did the 5 hours yet tomorrow and talk about all the conditions.
Yeah, no, there's no question. There's huge issues with that. I mean, this is why you hire young 25-year-old capologists, to figure out things like this, because and I was really happy to get to break this trade last night. It was, it was very satisfying just throwing it out there. I don't usually
set your Google alerts to the Capitals yesterday.
I don't. And you guys know what happened. I can't tell the story, but it is. I was just incredibly lucky. Okay, that's all I can say. Just luck beyond luck. I can't tell the actual story, but that's when you break trades this time of year. That's what it comes down to. It's just luck. Fortunately, you make good relations over those years. Unfortunately, some of those people may have some kind of influence or might understand something, and that person may leave their dinner in the middle and call on their wife's cell phone to tell you what happened. And that's kind of interesting when that happens. You pray to the gods, and you realize your kids may be able to go to college. So that's the
equivalent of a GM burner phone is the wife's cell phone.
Right. It was exciting last night, and I really it was a fun thing to happen. And I just, really thanks for all those people out there who did acknowledge it for what it's worth. It's which is nothing, but just I appreciate it. And so let's talk about the actual trade itself, because earlier in the day, I think it was Brian Lawton who put out somewhere that the Penguins and Capitals were in a battle for this player. And from what I could tell, the Penguins really weren't that into this player. I mean, they wanted to, but the price that ended up going kind of eliminated the Capitals.
So they drove the price up for the Capitals.
Right. And then there were a lot of people last night, Rangers fans, who were flipping out about this because the Rangers wanted to get the Rangers. And the Rangers were in on it, too. They definitely were.
Yeah, but the Rangers don't have the same kind of wherewithal that the Capitals do, asset-wise. No.
Right. You're seeing in the Brendan Smith trade, I have no doubt that you're seeing 2 picks that were earmarked for Shattenkirk.
Yep.
And that there are other players, of course, other things involved, right?
And
but
they can't even afford to give up those picks. I mean, that's the whole point.
Right. But they turned around.
The Capitals have a much deeper system than the Rangers do.
And the Capitals also have a team that has never won a Stanley Cup, a team that is a team with Alexander Ovechkin on it that's never won the Stanley Cup. That is been the best team in the NHL now for 2 years running, basically. And this is an all-in moment. This is when it's really fun to be a Capitals fan. Like this is.
Yeah.
You guys have
Zach Sanford. I mean, Zach Sanford will play for St. Louis, but he's not going to burn down.
Yeah, no, exactly.
He's okay.
So that was, to me, that was pretty interesting, and I'm really happy that this happened the way it did. And I think it's gonna make. I mean, and the irony of the whole thing is, of course, in New York tonight we get to see Shattenkirk play against the Rangers, right? So that's
yes.
Gonna start out, and Rangers fans, I will tell you, I don't think this changes at all the fact that I still 85% think he's going to be a Ranger next year. I really do.
No, I don't think it changes it.
This is a pure rental. Although, I mean, I heard some.
We have to talk about it. Go ahead, say what we heard.
Listening to some frankly questionable talk about the value of John Carlson on Washington, who, by the way, has another year on his contract, and he's undervalued right now at, I think, around $3.7 million. He'll be a UFA next year, after the 17-18 season. And Nick Kiprios from Sportsnet talking about how Shattenkirk is going to immediately be vaulted to the top pairing and the top power play, and that Carlson's a disappointment. I mean, what utter crap!
I mean,
honestly, what utter crap!
Yeah, John Carlson is big and he's tough, and he scores 40 points a year. And does he have more takeaways and giveaways? He does, but he gets giveaways. Shattenkirk is actually more of a liability in his own zone than Carlson is, that's for sure. But they both give you tremendous offense. But the thing that Carlson's got is size and toughness besides the offense. Like, it's just, to me, that was crazy talk. It's like I love Kevin Shattenkirk, and I don't want to be put in this position, but I would take John Carlson over Kevin Shattenkirk every day of the week.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I think
if John Carlson wasn't from Natick, Massachusetts, I don't think you'd be seeing this. I don't mean to be. I just think that if he was from Flin Flon, they would have a different opinion on him. But the fact is, John Carlson is a great American defenseman who is right there.
Right, that's the puzzling thing. If it was sort of a Canadian versus American thing, I could understand the parochialism here. But it's
I know it's American versus American, yeah.
Yeah, it's American versus American, and honestly, Shattenkirk to me is more of a specialist, to more of like in the sort of Mike Green type of territory in terms of a defenseman, whereas Carlson I think is a top 2 defenseman.
All you have to say is this: if you asked Team USA, if they were going to the Olympics next year. And we had Kevin Allen on here, who's very tight with the USA. If we asked him who's a better shot, John Carlson or Kevin Shattenkirk, he would not pause and say Carlson is a better shot at being on that Olympic team. So it's not even, it's really not even. I mean, and this is nothing against Shattenkirk at all.
No, but this is just the craziness now of this whole Shattenkirk. Will he or won't he be traded? Now he's traded. Let's see how he fits in before we even worry about the rest.
Right.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, you would assume he would fit in. It reminds me like Mike Green type player. Who always has excelled in the Capitals, and Shattenkirk I don't think is as bad defensively as people.
No, he's not.
I think part of that is the fact that he's been so. He's on that team where he has really good defensive players. In St. Louis, and a team that plays a totally defensive style in St. Louis, and he has been forced to play that way all the time, and that probably has affected his numbers to a degree. And I know people out there have told me that he's been being very frustrated with the fact that he can't just go. Now, sometimes Washington, you can just go. Now, whether or not Trotz is going to Trotz is going to handle that because this isn't Bruce Boudreau now. This is Trotz who does like defensive playing.
That's not
Look what happens to Ovechkin. Ovechkin is not nearly the offensive powerhouse, but is better two-way player right now. So Shattenkirk will have to play two ways still. So it doesn't really change that too much, I wouldn't think.
Yeah, that's not consistent with what Trotz does. He's not going to let Shattenkirk freewheel. But I think honestly, you have Carlson and Shattenkirk. I don't know if they use a 1-3-1 on their power play or if they use two defensemen. If they use two defensemen, Shattenkirk and Carlson would be a nice pairing on their power play.
What the funny thing is, I do want to say this because we always say, well, they are sucking out some of the offense from Ovechkin or whatever. He's still got 27 goals and 54 points. It's
I know. I'm not. Yeah,
terrible year. Russ, what did you think of the Brendan Smith deal for the Rangers? The 2018 second and a 2017 third for Brendan Smith.
This is just further deteriorating their ability to regroup and rebuild their pipeline. There's only going to be so many college free agents that you could fall back on and sign every year.
Right.
They've gotten lucky with that, so that helped with some of this with Hayes and with VC, but that's not going to happen every year. And this is a rental. Even if they have designs on signing him next year, he's a very marginal guy. I mean, you could tell me that he's been great since Thanksgiving. I saw an article. You could tell me he's fantastic in shot suppression. Okay. I tell you that there's a guy with four takeaways and like 27 giveaways. Now, I did see the writer for the Daily News covers the Rangers. I forget his name right this moment. Sorry. He put out an article that said, hey, he's had knee issues this year, but he's played every game since like February 4th, all 9 of them, and averaged 20 minutes. And, of course, he's a bottom pairing guy, which is all the Rangers need. But this is a lot to give up. See, everybody figures it's not that much because, hey, it's not this year's 22nd round pick, rather, but they already gave away this year's second round pick. So now you're working into next year. It's a bad place to be. And how far can the Rangers really get? Even if Brendan Smith completely cures their defensive problem, Dan Girardi will be back in a couple of weeks. That's the issue here. He's got an ankle injury. They've got some youngsters they could try, but Steve Kampfer, who everybody remembers from the Florida Panthers for like his 50 or so games that he's played there, is actually going to get the recall for probably a game until Brendan Smith gets there. And how far can the Rangers really go? Realistically, are they getting past Washington or Pittsburgh? Because, look, there always has to be a little bit of luck, and maybe one of those two teams gets eliminated. Both of them are not going to get eliminated. They would have to face one of them along the way, and I don't think now they could beat either one. I thought before this deal they would have a chance against the Capitals. Now I don't think they would beat the Capitals.
Yeah, it's hard to argue. I mean, the only thing is that to say this about the playoffs and the Rangers is that it's tough to bet against the Rangers in the playoffs as well. Like they have.
No, they're going to make the playoffs.
Lundqvist is a really good playoff goalie,
and they're going to make money. But I will go back to a lot of the failings of the Rangers going really far and not getting to the Cup every year is the failing that the Knicks never make the playoffs. And at the end of the day, MSG can't go dark this time of year. So they bank on the Rangers always making the playoffs. And by doing that, the Rangers always have to make deadline moves. This would have been a good year to sort of do nothing or to spend really minimal assets like a 5th, 6th, or 7th round pick to just get somebody that was going to get released to fill in until Dan Girardi's back and just go with what you got. You've already got Clendening as an extra defenseman because at the end of the day, they've got like 5 guys that are number 4 defensemen, Kevin Kline included. It's crazy.
Right, and that's the thing. They really didn't improve themselves in the sense. They improved their depth, but they really didn't upgrade the quality. If they would have acquired Shattenkirk, if they would have gone out and got a Johnny Oduya or somebody like that, that would have improved. That would have raised the quality of the defense. But here, they just not to say he's a body, but I think he's a little better than that.
He's a little better than that. But I mean, Clendening and Smith. How far is that going to get you anyhow? When you're in the playoffs, you're going to be scratching these guys. Like, you're not scratching them. You're going to play them for 9 minutes.
Right. I mean, I think Smith is probably going to be bottom pairing. It's either him or Nick Holden.
Right, and Holden's got more offense, so they're going to push Holden up.
Right. So it's insurance. But like you said, I think 2 draft picks a second round pick in 20 is pretty expensive.
Everybody's like, well, this is the extra second round pick they got from the Brassard trade. Well, they don't have a second round pick. Rather, they have a first. They don't have a second round pick this year.
Right. Now, while Eck is taking that phone call, we have to talk about this deal, because if and when there's any opportunity and I have to slam them here, because the deal for Alex Burrows is cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs.
It's a high price to pay.
Motivation here, if you're going to give up a prospect like Dahlin, you wanted to get Burrows for more than just as a rental. Mm-hmm. So, there's some speculation that it was Burrows who wanted the extension, but I would say, like, honestly, if Ottawa is trading for a veteran guy, that they don't want it just for a rental if they're giving up a young prospect. And Dahlin is a second round pick, very talented player. Played in the World Junior.
5 goals in like 7 games in the World Juniors. He was dynamite.
And honestly, I think a great ad for Vancouver. I mean, Dahlin will be brought up in the system with the Sedins up there. I don't know how long the Sedins are going to play, but maybe in a year or two, when Dahlin is ready to play in the NHL, the Sedins will still be around. Burrows is just a high-priced rat. Mm-hmm. That's all he is. I mean,
but they need that. They do need that.
Well, the funny thing that came out was, I think it was Pierre Dorian, the general manager, came out and says, well, we need character. We needed to add character. That's sort of a slam on the team that is right now second place in the Atlantic Division. And like, they've overachieved.
2 years, $2.5 million, not a lot of money.
Right.
So if he mixes it up, that's great. But Jonathan Dahlin's going to be a second line NHLer. And at some point, this trade's going to hurt, but they're trying to win the division. I get it. Look, we know the owner really wants to win. We know why. Yes. We know everybody in that organization really wants to win, and we know why.
Right.
So, that's what Ottawa's doing here. And it's a high price to pay. If they were to win the division, it would give them a better chance in the playoffs, and then you never know. And that's what they're going for.
And they do have other really good forward prospects in Logan Brown and in Colin White, but I don't think, if you're giving up a Dahlin, who's I think one of their better prospects in the organization, I think you have to get more than a 35 or 36-year-old role player whose main claim to fame is that he will bite people and.
But again, here's the other part of this. So Guy Boucher coached him in the 2012 World Championships. And so you have a situation where the coach is asking for a player.
And Mark Crawford coached him when he was with Vancouver, so there's that connection as well.
Yeah, there is the
Colorado. You got somebody on hold. Is that on purpose?
Yeah, I know. It is on purpose. The Colorado app, I had to take the phone off the hook for a second because I was having issues with the phone as well. So the phone.
Sorry, please hold.
Everything's ringing back into here again. So there you have it. I know. So
like a Lily Tomlin phone. It's
I should hang it up while I wait here. But yes, now things are going through my phone, I believe. So if that rings again, I'll let you know. Yeah, that wasn't Alan calling. Okay, so the Avalanche are in Philadelphia tonight. Ironically enough, I'm sure Duchesne and Landeskog are going to be happy to see me. So. So it's gonna be fascinating tonight to see how this plays out. I'm not sure where this goes, although it really feels as if Landeskog is not getting traded. That's what I'm gathering right now. That this is really down to just.
It's really possible, like we said, nobody's getting traded.
Yeah, it's very possible, and there are people who believe that fully, and I even partially believe that at times, fully, because I think that. I do also believe that they've had some really. The bigger offers have been for Duchesne. If anyone gets traded, it's going to be Duchesne.
Right.
And the Islanders and Canadians have both made offers that I believe are suitable. Based on what I've heard, at least. So whether or not Sakic believes he can get more, or whether or not he's just not getting the right player in his mind. I think it's suitable. That doesn't mean that Sakic does. So.
Or if this was a complete fishing expedition that was perpetrated so they could sort of. I would say collect these offers and then maybe reference them in the summer when they're actually going to make the deal. To me, it's like a kabuki theater right now. They've been talking about this for 6 weeks, and if at the 11th hour, there's no seriousness here from Sakic about making a deal. Now, what the hell is the point?
Well, and I'll give you one better. Ron Francis has sort of gotten in on the action because I guess the word has gotten out. Hey, you could get Justin Falk if they could get a top center. And I'm thinking for all the teams that don't have a top center, like now you're hoping that there's one that says, you know what, we are going to trade this guy at some point. We really like Falk and we'll do it. So he's just putting it out there. And I use this as an example for people because they were wondering, like, who would that be? I'd be like Nathan McKinnon or somebody. Like, that's what it would take to get Justin Falk at this point.
Yeah.
In my mind.
A text I got from a friend who is very connected to the situation just now about the Tampa Bay Lightning and their future here and what they're trying to do. He just talked to somebody at Tampa and has talked to people at Tampa throughout the process and was told the only 2 players that are untouchable in Tampa Bay Lightning are
Kucherov and
Hedman and Stamkos.
Hedman and Stamkos. That's it.
Hedman and Stamkos. Really, Kucherov they trade? Come on, Kucherov.
No, I'm not saying they trade him, but he's not listed as untouchable. So when you actually, they'll listen. So
because he signed that bridge deal, he didn't get the long term.
Yeah, I guess.
And he knows he's not going to get it from them because of the way they.
Well, they could give it to him. No, that's not true. If they do trade Duran, they definitely could give it to him.
Right.
If they trade Duran. Now, last night Tampa looked great for what it's worth. I mean, it's funny because, not funny, but you just have a sense that sometimes trading even Ben Bishop, who was, the rumors just flying around, it kind of puts the team at ease a little bit. Like and this could happen with St. Louis too. Don't be shocked here. This could, the Blues, the Shattenkirk stuff has gone on and the Blues played better, but it's always funny when this happens. Another team that is really fun, really interesting because of their schedule that's left and because of the fact that, I'm working on this thing that's going to premiere later today or tomorrow my wife is, is like a PhD mathematician, right? So we did a lot of time working on this thing that is going to actually be predicting the rest of the season, and there are these things, there are these places that exist of who is the best chance of making the playoffs and I've looked at how they're done and I don't like the way they're done. So what we've done is taken a bunch of different factors and put them into a formula and high on that list is how teams play against each other, how teams play in different buildings. And then when I ran all the numbers yesterday, just because I'm trying it out for a couple of days to make sure it's working, right? The Dallas Stars were 1 point out of a playoff spot at the end of the year. Now, what my formula doesn't take into account, of course, is the fact that they're trading away players, right? So, and I've got
their coffers. They're going to trade Sharp. They're going to trade Oduya.
Right. We think so, although there's mixed feelings on that now. Oduya, I think, is getting traded, but Sharp may not. But either way, they've traded away Eves. They're obviously in a sell mood, and I feel like I should have gotten this to them earlier and said, "Hey guys, you're not." But because the way the season breaks with their schedule and the other schedules of the other teams, they actually are not. They have a really easy schedule, and if it could go on a run. The weird thing about this is, we saw it the other night. They moved Eves and they came out and they played really well. This is typical of NHL teams. This is not an individual sport, and
right.
You can't stress that enough. That emotion plays such a big factor in hockey, and over the course of an 82-game season, it's not you can't win on emotion, but over the course of a few weeks, you can, and you can get hot, and you can get and that's what we've seen sometimes, as we saw last year with the Flyers. Who actually, the way my simulation runs, finished 13th in the conference right now. So last year when I ran the same simulation, it did find the Flyers in the playoffs, which they did make the playoffs. This year
and that took until the last day of the season.
Yeah, but that's exactly what my simulation said it would do, which was really freaky, spooky. But to me, now they're in the 13th based on this, so they are going the opposite direction. So. But Dallas, and Dallas is a team, and the Islanders actually look.
Even Tampa, the odds are stacked against them. I don't care what their record, what their.
Oh yeah, no question.
Right now, Dallas is 9 points behind St. Louis. Now we don't know what St. Louis is going to do after.
Yeah.
They were to Shattenkirk. You've got LA 2 points behind St. Louis.
I think St. Louis makes the playoffs too. St. Louis actually, the way my thing works right now, and I'll put it up later, is St. Louis comes in third in the division, Nashville fourth. And Dallas comes in right behind them. Dallas beats out Calgary and LA. That's what my thing. So those are the teams you have to look at with Dallas.
I think LA is going to be in there. I disagree with your computer.
Yeah, who knows? And it's. and listen, my computer is not like, and I would disagree with it as well. Like I think LA made the move for Bishop. Now they're going to make another move to get another player here, maybe Vanek.
Well, here's something that you touched on earlier, Ak, and John Shannon from Sportsnet is also reporting about Yarrow Halak rumors. At least two teams with offers for Yarrow Halak, teams looking for a quality backup, and he's lit it up in Bridgeport since being demoted. I wonder why he got demoted. Could it have been his agent?
Well, here's the thing. I mean, why isn't he traded then? Like, what would be like? We all say that Joe Sakic's probably holding up a Duchesne to the Islanders deal. Nothing is holding this up. Like, Halak should be traded already.
Yeah, and the question is who these two teams are. I mean, there are a number of teams that I think are looking for quality backups. In my mind, and I know that I'm not reporting any rumor. I'm just saying I'm looking at the league and saying this is a team that needs a goalie. If Brad Treliving and Calgary are not in on Yarrow Halak, I would be shocked.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't think that deal would be hammered out in 10 minutes.
I mean, to me, it's Calgary and Boston, and that's what I've heard. Now, Boston's fascinating because you are trading Boston. You're trading with a team that you're actually fighting for a playoff spot with. In Boston, if you're the Islanders, that might be risky. But
I saw on Twitter there was
100%, like more than ever before, sold on Thomas Greiss. Like I've talking to people there. They are. There's no question. That's the one thing I will say about the change from Capuano. This is the first time I can ever remember talking to somebody at the Islanders and saying we have a number one goalie. His name is Thomas Greiss. Bottom line, that's how it plays. Because in
that's true.
World, things changed a lot, right? Doug Waite has decided that Greiss is the best goalie they could possibly have, and here they're going with him. They're 100%.
By the way, I read on Twitter that there's a writer that guaranteed that the Bruins would make the playoffs. I'm not so positive about that being a guarantee.
That's a really risky guarantee.
Well, the complicating factor here is Halak has another year at $4.5 million. Then he can be exposed to the expansion draft. He can be bought out, but that has to be a complicating factor for maybe Boston.
Boston has to get a backup goalie tomorrow.
Right.
If you don't get a backup goalie tomorrow, something is horribly wrong. I mean, there's no reason at all, right? So
no, I agree. I'm just saying that the thing is if there's a Boston deal, maybe a guy like Khudobin goes back to the Islanders because
I think that's very possible, and I think I mean, and not to say Boston doesn't get Neuwirth or Mason or something like that, but it's possible they pick up somebody else. But the Bruins are a playoff team right now easily if they get half decent play out of their backup goalie. They cannot They cannot go the rest of the year without addressing their back. If they do go the rest of the year without addressing the backup goalie situation, then this Bruins management has completely lost their minds. I mean, this is the of all the trades that have to happen tomorrow, that's the one I think that has to happen tomorrow.
Yeah, I would think that has to happen. I would agree with you on that. If they really are going to make this playoff push, they're going to have to do it.
Because there's guys out there that they can get. I mean, that's the crazy thing about it. There's no question. I mean, if not Halak, they can definitely get Neuwirth, or they could get Mason. Both of whom are way better than what they have in their backup spot. So
I don't know if Ryan Miller would go to Boston as a backup, but
I don't think he would.
Yeah.
Well, maybe on his last year here. I don't know.
He's not on his last year, though.
But it also could be a domino effect. It also could be if Calgary goes out and gets themselves a goaltender. Maybe they trade Chad Johnson or Elliott, and that would be the backup in Boston rather than, because you need somebody to have to give Rask a little bit of a blow and not be able to have to play 21 of the last 22 games.
And Rask is known for getting hurt at weird times.
Right.
I mean, he could easily, the playoffs could start tomorrow and suddenly Rask is out with something, and then there's nothing against him, but this has happened, right? So they need to solidify this spot. And in my mind, Halak's their best shot because he's got a great playoff history. And what you want from your backup is somebody who you can trust in the playoff game. So that's, to me, he's going to win you enough games in the regular season to get you to the playoffs, and you can trust him should your goalie go down. That's, I would say Halak first, Neuwirth second. I mean, assuming Miller isn't going to come, right? That's what we're assuming right now. But I wouldn't be shocked if Miller does decide to go somewhere here because. How many more chances is Miller going to get at this,
Well, I mean, and I haven't heard any kind of update on the extent of Gibson's injury. in Anaheim, and I think they expect him to be back before the playoffs. But there were indications that the Ducks were in on Bishop, and if that's
they are definitely updated by now on the rumor chart.
right,
if I could get to them. But no, the fact of the matter is, no, they're definitely in on Miller, and with good reason, like you say, and also the fact that LA doubled down with 2 goalies. Like even if Gibson was healthy, they have to look at it the same way. They have to say, okay, we got it. There is definitely a factor to Anaheim and LA doing things to counter each other's moves, and that's happened before. I mean, it can happen again very easily, I think. So I think you're right on with that.
Yeah, the other deal that was sort of weird, and it wasn't a big deal, but the Jordy Ben Patterson deal, Russ. I mean, from what I gathered, just researching about this one, was that the reason that Dallas traded Ben was because Dallas wasn't going to be able to protect him in expansion.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And Ben's a useful guy. I think that's fair. I do, and I think people overlook that.
And I did talk to somebody in the Central Division, okay, and I tweeted this out too, but it was really, and a person I really respect, who said that Montreal made a great trade with us, and that Jordy Ben. Now, I've 2 different opinions on this. I've talked to Bill Meltzer about Jordy Ben, and Bill Meltzer covers the Flyers, covers the Dallas Stars for us, and Bill Meltzer compares Jordy Ben to Brandon Manning. He thinks that they're basically the same player, and he's covered both the Flyers and the Stars. So I was, Manning's a good player, is a good 5-6 type player, but he's not gonna be dominant for you. But he also does have like a mean streak to a degree, like Jordy Ben has. And the person in the Central Division I talked to, though, said, I'm thrilled to have Jordy Ben out of the Central Division. He's a pain in the neck to play against. And his numbers don't do him justice to what he is. He's actually a tougher player than people realize. And when I saw that, I was, Montreal, I think, does need some of that grittiness in front of their goal.
I think that's fair.
I mean, Shea Weber is tough in front of the net, but you don't want Shea Weber being the guy who's beating up people in front of the net. After that, Markov is not a front of the net presence, So
no, I mean, really, they don't have that other than Weber. I think that's fair. Yeah. I think it'll help them. There are people now. I mean, it seems like panic has really hit even the media in Montreal. Like, they're all just looking at them like, Montreal is burning, and I still don't feel like they're in that spot yet.
Well, I mean, 2 victories, one against the Leafs on Saturday, where it was give and take whether they were going to win that game. But then last night they're down 3. They were down 2-0 to New Jersey. They came back, rallied, tied the game with less than a minute left to go, win on an Alex Galchenyuk goal with Al Montoya in net for them. They basically had no business winning that game, but they did. That takes a little bit of the pressure off, but I don't think it takes a lot of it off. And I really think that Bergevin still has to make that big move. And if he can't make that big move, I think he has to make some sort of move. If he stays pat right now with what he has and just relies on Claude Julien coming in to change the fortunes there, I think the Montreal Canadiens are a first-round elimination.
When you have Carey Price, you can't say that. I think, that's the funny thing. Everybody wants to look at their lineup and say they're out in the first round and sort of dismiss Price. But we've seen what Carey Price can do.
I'm not dismissing Price, Russ. I'm just saying
the Sharks are talking to the Canucks about Ryan Miller.
The Sharks.
Yeah, that's not he stays on the West Coast, and we talked about how he wants to stay on the West Coast. So that's not completely surprising.
I don't. Okay, maybe it's nice insurance for Martin Jones if he gets hurt, but I don't know how badly Aaron Dell has played as their backup. I mean, he's a 20.
He hasn't, but you just don't want him to be in there if you're in the Stanley Cup and Martin Jones were hurt.
I mean, let's just say this: what is Vancouver looking for Ryan Miller? If this is a rental and it's a 3rd-round pick or something like that, then I think San Jose could very well be in on Miller. But it also could be it's like Bishop. Prevent your main competition from getting the goaltender. They could be bidding this up, so Anaheim has to actually give up something to get Miller.
Yeah, and that seems more likely. I agree with that too. Although, and again, there's a lot of people that really like to give Jim Benning a hard time.
Yeah,
I think Jim Benning's had a good year here, guys. I mean, he kept his team competitive. He got a great player in a trade, a great player.
Yeah, that deal was great.
He didn't extend the 35-year-old. He didn't.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of positives for the Vancouver Canucks in this.
I'm with you. I think, and I have not been a Benning fan at all.
No, but he got a skilled 19-year-old kid for a 35-year-old who was eating up $4.5 million in salary on your cap.
Yeah.
So, and you're probably going to let him go for nothing. So yeah, no, I think that was a great deal. And I mean, let's say this. Here's a couple teams now with the Brendan Smith deal today. I think we all know that Detroit's selling. It's going to be interesting to see where Vanek goes, because I think you've said before that Vanek is going to be, it could be Chicago, it could be Pittsburgh, it could be Montreal again.
I really think it could be LA now.
LA.
Here's the funny thing about that too, Mike, because online there's some discussion about maybe the Rangers way overpaid. I don't think they way overpaid. I think the problem that the fans have, and the problem that I have as a prospect guy, is they just don't have any second-round picks now the next 2 years.
Right.
That is a problem. And it doesn't diminish this trade. It just – I look at the overall thing and say, I'm not in love with this trade because of that, because that's the aspect that hurts. As far as the actual haul –
right.
It is – I mean, it's not a guarantee these second- and third-round picks are going to make it either. We know that.
Right. But see, the thing is that, okay, a team like Minnesota –
Yeah, I'm just I'm gonna have to wrap this up in like 2 minutes here.
Okay.
Because I got a person I have to call, really important person to call about all this Miller stuff. But let's continue finish your thought. Sorry.
A team like Minnesota was freed up to trade draft picks that they did because they have Cunnin and Greenway and the Russian kid from the World Juniors and a couple other prospects in their organization, Alex Tuck. Washington could do what they did for Shattenkirk because they have Samsonov and they have Verana and they have a Barber and a few other prospects, Madison Bowie. The Rangers don't have that deep well of talent.
That's the point I was making.
Right, that's something that we have to keep an eye on tomorrow. A team like Chicago, even though they may not want to trade their first-round pick, they may be willing to trade a first or a second because they have a lot of young guys that they just signed or just brought in the last year.
If you'd have told me this Ranger pick was 2/3, I wouldn't even have blinked. The second-round pick is what sort of tweaked me.
Yeah, and Russ, that's why I got tweaked about the Brian Boyle deal, because it's a second-round pick. I don't care how good the draft is. The Leafs still haven't one more second-round pick, but they're in the process of a rebuild, and this is a move too early to pull plug for them. That's all.
I think they're going to try and re-sign Boyle because they need a player like that.
Right, and they very, very well may. Yes. So there you go.
Penguins are also looking at Ryan Murphy.
That's a depth move because they have so.
You know what? I'll be honest. I would use Warsofsky over Ryan Murphy. They're the same player. I don't know why. I don't see the sense in that one. To me, that's not much of an upgrade.
Do you think Pittsburgh's in on Oduya?
I do.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think they probably are. Look, I do.
I don't know if it's their top choice, but I think they are in on him for sure. I think Chicago is as well.
I can't remember who reported it, but it was one of the TSN insiders that said that a fallback for Pittsburgh might be Francois Beauchemin.
Yeah, that was me, Mike.
Yeah, but you don't want
that.
I mean, thanks.
Then they said
that was in the rumor tracker this morning.
That's like Brooks Orpik. Like, I don't know what Beauchemin's going to do for you anymore.
I think he does a lot for the Penguins. He's a good transitional guy.
Yeah.
Not Orpik, because what the Penguins need, all these players that are hurt for them are transitional defensemen. And that's what they're looking for.
I don't know. I mean, I think he's a little long in the tooth. I've seen him play recently. I will say this. For the Pittsburgh-Washington arms race, I think it's pretty close now. The one thing that we can't put on paper, even though when the trading deadline's done and they fortified themselves, somehow Ovechkin and Backstrom are going to have to reach the level of Malkin and Crosby point-wise if they're going to want to beat them. That's really what it always comes down to, unless all of a sudden TJ Oshie is going to have, a goal a game in that series, right? It always comes down to their stars against the Capital stars.
Brian McClellan has added as many complementary secondary players to help those core guys. Now it comes down to Murray, Malkin, and Crosby and Letang against Backstrom, Ovechkin, Holtby, and say John Carlson or Shattenkirk, whoever.
Right. It really is. I mean, that really at this point, not to put the hammer on those guys, but those have to be your best players, and they do have to come through if you really want to get to the Stanley Cup. It's true.
Yeah. All right. That's all the time we got for today. I think I'm also here in Boston and Edmonton with James Wisniewski, who's been playing really well in the AHL.
Yeah, very brief. I think it's 5 or 6 games, but
I'm a Wisniewski fan. The guy has had a horrible luck. For sure.
That's a low risk move. It's a
very low risk move because it's not going to cost anything, and he could come in and really help you. He's
who got him? I missed who you.
No.
Haven't got him yet, but I've heard Boston and Edmonton. I heard the Rangers as well, but I think the Rangers are now okay with what they've picked up. So
yeah, I think the Rangers should stay out of it because we don't know if Wisniewski can even play in the playoffs. Like we don't know what his skating's like right now.
Well, he left the KHL early. He came back. He's playing in the AHL. I'm sure they've scouted him, extensively. So if there's interest there, then they probably think that it's worth a shot.
Here's what I would say: James Wisniewski, even if you're only playing him 8 minutes a game, unless he's playing on the power play, I'm not sure he's adding so much to your lineup.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean,
1 second. Go ahead. You can continue.
I'd like to see a shot chart of like what Wisniewski used to score 5-on-5 because as like a bottom pairing defenseman, how many give?
Well, two players we have to keep an eye out on tomorrow because I think that Tim Murray and Buffalo are going to be very active in terms of Kulikov and Cody Franzen. I think they'll try to move both of them if they can get value for them. And there may be other players in the mix. I know that there was some mention out there about Zemgus Girgensons. If all else fails for backup goaltenders, Anders Nielsen has played well for the Sabres as their sort of 1B. If somebody's looking for a cheap option in terms of a backup goaltender, it might be an Anders Nielsen.
Here's an example. In 2015, Wisniewski had 29 points. 21 of them were on the power play.
Yeah,
yep. The specialist, exactly.
He's a specialist, but he also has a real he's a roughness to his game. That I think
if he could skate again, then he might be able to do that too.
Yeah, right. And apparently he can. He's had some weird luck in his life. But he's had weird injuries, weird suspensions.
Anaheim, those 13 games for Anaheim, every point was on the power.
Reason.
That was bizarre. I never understood.
It was the craziest thing. It was like just he was helping their power play. Their power play stuck in the playoffs, and they stopped playing them. By the way, tomorrow, tomorrow we'll be playing the trade deadline hockey game. If we get slow spots, which we never know, but if we do, this game is hilarious. Okay, I've been checking.
Yeah, I love it.
It's really we're gonna have Russ is gonna be over here. Jillian's gonna be over here. We're gonna be playing the board game. We'll give Mike. Well, Mike will be playing it remotely. You can make trades for players. It has a compute. It has a whole like Chris Pronger, for example, or
you can only trade his salary now. You can't trade
Joe Thornton. But this is like 2010, I believe.
That's Joe Thornton's son. He doesn't have a beard.
Well, I know these are old pictures, and it comes with the trade deadline hockey calculator, put out by the NHLPA. This is going to be awesome.
Can I figure out the AAV of a guy?
Sports Trivial Pursuit, because this thing looks like
this is going to be way more fun than that.
At least if it were a cap calculator, it would be a help.
You can get this is funny because this is put out by the NHLPA, right? So all the players are in just a white jerseys. Robert Blake, it's just
I'm not trading for a GM for a potential GM.
One of the all-time great trade deadline names, František Kaberle. Come on,
oh, wow.
This is going to be awesome.
Wait a second. Get it right. It's František Kaberle.
Yeah.
Not Michael Lyles. Come on. This is going to be incredible. Tomorrow we're going to be playing this game. And
all right, guys.
Bored and you're watching the other trade things and they're doing nothing but singing songs or whatever they're going to do. Come to HockeyBuzz.com. We will be working, Amazon willing. And we'll be working and we'll be doing not just talking about what they're talking about. And if they break something, we'll let you know that they broke it. But we'll also be playing the NHL trade deadline hockey game put out by the NHLPA.
And if worse comes to worse, Russ can pick on me because of the Brian Boyle.
There you go. Fantastic. Got to go. Talk to you soon. Remember that the buzz is just hockey. We will talk to you tomorrow.